we're accessing the magician energy. And it is the magician energy that drives our own modern civilization. Shamans, medicine men, wizards, witch doctors, brujos, inventors, scientists, doctors, lawyers, technicians, all these are accessing the same masculine energy pattern, no matter what age or culture they live in. The energies of the magician archetype, wherever and whenever we encounter them, are twofold. The magician is the knower, and he is the master of technology. Furthermore, the man who is guided by the power of the magician is able to fulfill these magician functions in part by his use of ritual initiatory process. He is the ritual elder who guides the process of transformation both within and without. The human magician is always an initiate himself, and one of his tasks is to initiate others. But of what is he an initiate? The magician is an initiate of secret and hidden knowledge of all kinds. And this is the important point. All knowledge that takes special training to acquire is the province of the magician energy. The magician is a universal archetype that has operated in the masculine psyche throughout history. It can be accessed today by modern men in their work and in their personal lives. It is thought by some anthropologists that in the very ancient past, the masculine energies of the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover were once inseparable, and that one man, the chief, manifested all the functions of these archetypes in an holistic way. Since all four of these energies are in the masculine self and balanced there, it may be that the chief was the only one in the tribe who experienced himself as a whole man. Be that as it may, in the Aboriginal societies that still exist today, these masculine energies are already somewhat distinct. There is the king or chief, and there are the chief's warriors, and there is the magician, the holy man, the witch doctor, the shaman. Whatever his title, his specialty is knowing something that others don't know. He knows, for instance, the secrets of the movements of the stars, the phases of the moon, the north-south swings of the sun. He knows when to plant and when to harvest, or when the herds will arrive next spring. He can predict the weather. He has knowledge of medicinal herbs and of poisons. He understands the hidden dynamics of the human psyche, and so can manipulate other human beings, for good or ill. He is the one who can effectively bless and curse. He understands the links between the unseen world of the spirits, the divine world, and the world of human beings and of nature. It is to him that people go with their questions, their problems, pains, and diseases of the body and of the mind. He is confessor and priest. He is the one who can think through the issues that are not obvious to other people. He is a seer and a prophet in the sense not only of predicting the future, but also of seeing deeply. This secret knowledge, of course, gives the magician an enormous amount of power. And because he has knowledge of the dynamics of energy flows and patterns in nature, in human individuals and in societies, and among the gods, the deep unconscious forces, he is a master at containing and channeling power. Ours is, we believe, the age of the magician, because it is a technological age. It is an age of the magician, at least in his materialistic concern with understanding and having power over nature. But in terms of non-materialistic, psychological, or spiritual initiatory process, the magician energy seems to be in short supply. We have already noted the absence of ritual elders who can initiate men into the deeper and more mature levels of masculine identity. Ours is an age, as we've said, of personal and gender identity chaos. And chaos is always the result of inadequate accessing of the magician in some vital area of life. Two sciences, Subatomic physics and depth psychology still do the work of the ancient magicians in a holistic way that brings together the material and the psychological sides of the magician energy. Each seeks to know and then to at least partially control the very wellsprings of the same hidden energies the ancients probed so profoundly. Modern subatomic physics, it has been said, looks very much like Eastern mysticism as it approaches the intuitive insights of Hinduism and Taoism. This new physics is discovering a micro-world beneath our seemingly solid macro-world of sense perceptions. In this hidden world beneath the surface of things, reality becomes very strange indeed. Particles and waves, so radically different in their properties in the macro world, in the micro world are the same thing. A particle can appear to be in two separate places at the same time without ever having divided. Matter loses its solidity and seems to be like gathered nodes of energy, concentrated in localized spots for more or less brief periods of time. And energy itself seems to arise out of an even more deeply concealed grid-like patterning of the void of space, which can no longer be viewed as nothing. Particles arise from this underlying energy field like waves on the ocean, only to subside or decay again into the nothingness from which they came. Questions arise about time. What is it? What direction is it going? Does it ever reverse? Do certain kinds of subatomic particles travel backward in time and then reverse their direction to move in our time again? What is the origin of the universe and its final fate? In the light of these new discoveries and questions, old questions resurface. What is the nature of being and of non-being? Are there in fact the other dimensions that mathematics predicts? In what ways might they be equivalent to what the ancient religions called other planes or worlds? Physicists have entered the realm of truly hidden and secret knowledge, and they are moving in a world of thought that looks very much like the world of the ancient magician. The same is true of depth psychology. Jung, as he was making his first maps of the unconscious, was struck by the similarities between what he was discovering about the energy flows and the archetypal patterns in the human psyche and quantum physics. Jung realized that he had stumbled onto a vast world that modern people had largely neglected, a world of living images and symbols that rose and fell like the waves of energy that seemed to account for our material universe. These archetypal realities, hidden in the deep void of the collective unconscious, seem to be the building blocks of our thoughts and feelings and of our habitual patterns of behaviors and reactions, our macro world of personality. For Jung, this collective unconscious looked very much like the unseen energy fields of the subatomic physicists. And to Jung, both of these looked a lot like the mysterious underlying pleroma discovered by the Gnostics. The conclusion of both modern physics and depth psychology is that things are not what they seem. What we experience as normal reality about ourselves and nature is only the tip of an iceberg that rises out of an unfathomable abyss. Knowledge of this hidden realm is the province of the magician, and it is through the magician energy that we will come to understand our lives with a degree of profundity not dreamed of for at least 1,000 years of Western history. What does all this mean for us men pursuing our quests for personal happiness and the life enhancement of our loved ones, our companies, our causes, our peoples, our nations, and the world? What functions does the magician energy of the mature masculine perform in our daily lives? The magician energy is the archetype of awareness and of insight, primarily, but also of knowledge of anything that is not immediately apparent or commonsensical. It is the archetype that governs what is called in psychology the observing ego. While it is sometimes assumed in depth psychology that the ego is secondary in importance to the unconscious, the ego is in fact vital to our survival. It is only when it is possessed by, identified with, and inflated by another energy form, an archetype or a complex, which is an archetypal fragment, like the tyrant, for instance, that it malfunctions. Its proper role is to stand back and to observe, to monitor the data coming in from both the outside and the inside, and then, out of its wisdom, to make the necessary life decisions. When the observing ego is aligned with the masculine self along an ego-self axis, it is initiated into the secret wisdom of this self. It is, in one sense, a servant of the masculine self, but in another sense, it is the leader and the channeler of this self's power. It is, then, a vital player in the personality as a whole. The observing ego is detached from the ordinary flow of daily events, feelings, and experiences. The magician archetype, in concert with this observing ego, keeps us insulated from the overwhelming power of the other archetypes. It is the mathematician and the engineer in each of us that regulates the life functions of the psyche as a whole. The magician energy is present in the warrior archetype in the form of his clarity of thinking. Whenever we are faced with what seems like an impossible decision in our daily lives, whenever we make decisions with careful and insightful deliberation, we are accessing the magician. The magician often comes online in a crisis. Often, in difficult situations, people are drawn into some kind of space and time frame that can be called sacred because it is so different from the space and time we normally experience. This sacred space is something men who are guided by the magician know well. These men may actually put themselves into that space deliberately, much like ritual magicians who draw their magic circles and recite their incantations. They enter this space by listening to certain musical pieces, by tending to a hobby, by taking long walks in the woods, by meditating on certain themes and mental pictures, and by many other methods. When they enter this sacred space within, they can be in touch with the magician. They can emerge from the inner space seeing what they need to do about a problem and knowing how to do it. We believe that the many ways in which the magician has appeared in history and in which he appears among men today are mere fragments of a once whole image. That primordial magician in men has manifested itself most fully in what anthropologists refer to as the shaman. The shaman in traditional societies was the healer, the one who restored life, who found lost souls, and who discovered the hidden causes of misfortune. He was the one who restored wholeness and fullness of being to both individuals and communities. Indeed, the magician energy today still has the same ultimate aim. The magician, and the shaman as his fullest human vessel, aims at fullness of being for all things. As positive as the magician archetype is, like all the other forms of the mature masculine energy potentials, it too has a shadow side. If ours is an age of the magician, then it is also an age of the bipolar shadow magician. We need only to think about the mushrooming problem of toxic waste poisoning and blighting our planet's environment. It was the shadow magician that handed us, in the darkest days of World War II, not only the technology of the death camps, but also the doomsday weapon that still hangs over our heads. Mastery over nature is running amok, and with incalculable results that we are already beginning to feel. The active pole of the shadow magician is, in a special sense, a power shadow. A man under this shadow doesn't guide others as a magician does. He directs them in ways they cannot see. His interest is not in initiating others by graduated degrees that they can integrate and handle into better, happier, and more fulfilled lives. Rather, the manipulator maneuvers people by withholding from them information they may need for their own well-being. The shadow magician is not only detached, then, he is also cruel. The man under the power of the manipulator not only hurts others with his cynical detachment from the world of human values and his subliminal technologies of manipulation, he also hurts himself. This is the man who thinks too much, who stands back from his life and never lives it. Whenever we are detached, unrelated, and withholding, when what we know could help others, whenever we use our knowledge as a weapon to belittle and control others or to bolster our status or wealth at others' expense, we are identified with the shadow magician as manipulator. We are doing black magic, damaging ourselves as well as those who could benefit from our wisdom. The passive pole of the magician's shadow is what we are calling the naive or innocent one. The innocent one is a carryover from childhood into adulthood of the passive pole of the precocious child's shadow, the dummy. The innocent one wants the power and status that traditionally come to the man who is a magician, at least in the societally sanctioned fields. But he doesn't want to take the responsibilities that belong to a true magician. He does not want to share and to teach. He does not want to be a steward of sacred space. He doesn't want to know himself, and he certainly doesn't want to make the great effort necessary to become skilled at containing and channeling power in constructive ways. He wants to learn just enough to derail those who are making worthwhile efforts. While he is protesting the innocence of his hidden power motives, the man possessed by the innocent one, too good to make any real efforts himself, blocks others and seeks their downfall. Whereas the trickster plays his tricks in part for the sake of revealing the truth, the innocent one hides the truth for the sake of achieving and maintaining his own precarious status. While the trickster aims at the necessary deflation of our grandiosity, the shadow magician, as both manipulator and innocent one, works at deflating us when such deflation is not only unnecessary, but harmful as well. The innocent one's underlying motivations come from envy of those who act, who live, who want to share. His detachment and his impressive behavior, his deflating remarks, his hostility toward questions, even his accumulated expertise are all designed to cover his real inner desolation and hide his actual lifelessness and irresponsibility from the world. The man possessed by the innocent one commits both sins of commission and sins of omission, but hides his hostile motives behind an impenetrable wall of feigned naivete. Such men are slippery and elusive. If we challenge their innocence, they will often react with a show of bewilderment. We may even feel ashamed of ourselves for having attributed base motives to them and conclude that we must be paranoid. But we will not be able to escape the uneasy feeling that we have been manipulated. And in that feeling, we will have detected the active pole of the magician's shadow behind the smokescreen of innocence. If we are possessed by the manipulator, we will be in the grip of the magician's power shadow. If we feel that we are out of touch with the magician in his fullness, we will be caught in the dishonest and denying passive pole of his shadow. In this case, we will not have much sense of our own inner structure, of our own calmness and clear-headedness. We won't have a sense of inner security, and we won't feel that we can trust our thinking processes. We won't be able to detach from our emotions and our problems. We're likely to experience inner chaos and to be vulnerable to outside pressures that will push and pull us in many different directions. We will act in a passive-aggressive way toward others, but claim to be innocent of any ill intentions. If we are accessing the magician appropriately, we will be adding to our professional and personal lives a dimension of clear-sightedness, of deep understanding and reflection about ourselves and others, and technical skill in our outer work and in our inner handling of psychological forces. As we access the magician, we need to regulate this energy with the other three archetypes of mature masculinity patterns. None of them, as we've suggested, works well alone. We need to mix with the magician the king's concern for generativity and generosity, the warrior's ability to act decisively and with courage, and the lover's deep and convinced connectedness to all things. We will then be using our knowledge, our containment, and our channeling of energy flows for human benefit, and perhaps for the enhancement of the whole planet.
There are many forms of love. The ancient Greeks spoke of agape, non-erotic love, what the Bible calls brotherly love. They spoke of eros, both in the narrow sense of phallic or sexual love, and the wider sense of love as the bonding and uniting urge of all things. The Romans spoke of amor, the complete union of one body and soul with another body and soul. These forms and all other forms of love, for the most part varieties of these, are the living expression of the lover energy in human life. Jungians often use the name of the Greek god Eros to talk about the lover energy. They also use the Latin term libido. By these terms, they mean not just sexual appetites, but a general appetite for life. We believe that the lover, by whatever name, is the primal energy pattern of what we could call vividness, aliveness, and passion. It lives through the great primal hungers of our species for sex, food, well-being, reproduction, creative adaptation to life's hardships, and ultimately a sense of meaning without which human beings cannot go on with their lives. The lover's drive is to satisfy those hungers. The lover archetype is primary to the psyche, also because it is the energy of sensitivity to the outer environment. It expresses what Jungians call the sensation function, the function of the psyche that is trained in on all of the details of sensory experience, the function that notices color and forms, sounds, tactile sensations, and smells. The lover also monitors the changing textures of the inner psychological world as it responds to incoming sensory impressions. We can easily see the survival value of this energy potential for our distant ancestors, who struggled for survival in a dangerous world. How does the lover show up in men today? How does he help us to survive and even to flourish? What are the lover's characteristics? The lover is the archetype of play and display, of healthy embodiment, of being in the world of sensuous pleasure and in one's own body without shame. Thus, the lover is deeply sensual, sensually aware and sensitive to the physical world in all its splendor. For the man accessing the lover, all things are bound to each other in mysterious ways. He sees the world in a grain of sand. This is the consciousness that knew long before the invention of holography that we live in a holographic universe, in which every part reflects every other in immediate and sympathetic union. It isn't just that the lover energy sees the world in a grain of sand. He feels that this is so. We believe that the man accessing the lover is open to a collective unconscious, perhaps even vaster than that which Jung proposed. Jung's collective unconscious is the unconscious of human beings as an entire species, and contains, as Jung said, the unconscious memories of all that has ever happened in the lives of all the people that have ever lived. But if, as Jung suggested, the collective unconscious appears to be limitless, why stop here? What if the collective unconscious is vast enough to include the impressions and sensations of all living things? Perhaps, indeed, it includes what some scientists are now calling primary awareness, even in plants. Eastern philosophers have said that we are like waves on the surface of this vast sea. The lover energy has immediate and intimate contact with this underlying oceanic connectedness. Along with sensitivity to all inner and outer things comes passion. The lover's connectedness is not primarily intellectual. It is through feeling. The primal hungers are felt passionately in all of us, at least beneath the surface. But the lover knows this with a deep knowing. Being close to the unconscious means being close to the fires of life, and on the biological level to the fires of the life-engendering metabolic processes. The man under the influence of the lover wants to touch and be touched. He wants to touch everything physically and emotionally, and he wants to be touched by everything. He recognizes no boundaries. He wants to live out the connectedness he feels with the world inside, in the context of his powerful feelings, and outside, in the context of his relationships with other people. Ultimately, he wants to experience the world of sensual experience in its totality. The lover energy, arising as it does out of the Oedipal child, is also the source of spirituality, especially of what we call mysticism. In the mystical tradition, which underlies and is present in all the world's religions, the lover energy, through the mystics, intuits the ultimate oneness of all that is, and actively seeks to experience that oneness in daily life while it still dwells in a mortal, finite man. The man under the influence of the lover does not want to stop at socially created boundaries. He stands against the artificiality of such things. His life is often unconventional. Consequently, because he is opposed to law in this broad sense, we see enacted in his life of confrontation with the conventional the old tension between sensuality and morality, between love and duty, between, as Joseph Campbell poetically describes it, amor and Roma. Amor standing for passionate experience, and Roma standing for duty and responsibility to law and order. The lover energy is thus utterly opposed, at least at first glance, to the other energies of the mature masculine. His interests are the opposite of the warriors, the magicians, and the king's concern for boundaries, containment, order, and discipline. What is true within each man's psyche is true in the panorama of history and cultures as well. In the history of our religions and the cultures that flow from them, we can see this pattern of tension between the lover and other archetypes of the mature masculine. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, what are called moral or ethical religions, have all persecuted the lover. Christianity has taught more or less consistently that the world, the very object of the lover's devotion, is evil, that the Lord of this world is Satan, and that it is he who is the source of the sensuous pleasures, the foremost of which is sex, that Christians must avoid. The church has often stood opposed to artists, innovators, and creators. Following the ancient Hebrew practice, the church also persecuted psychics and mediums, people who, along with artists and others, live very close to the image-making unconscious and hence to the lover. Here is a source of the witch burnings of the Middle Ages. Some of the witches, as far as the church was concerned, were not only psychic, that is, deeply intuitive and sensitive to impressions from the inner world of nuanced feelings, but they were also nature worshipers. Because the church labeled the world of nature evil, the witches were believed to be worshipers of Satan, the lover. Archetypes cannot be banished or wished away. The lover crept back into Christianity in the form of Christian mysticism. The doctrine of the incarnation itself proclaims God's permanent and intimate intercourse with all human beings. It is the presence of the lover in Christian mystical experience and theological thought that underlies the Church's ambivalent but nonetheless sacramental view of the material universe. What ways of life manifest the lover most clearly? There are two primary ones, the artist and the psychic. The artist is sensitive and sensual. Artists live very close to the fiery power of the creative unconscious. In a similar way, genuine psychics also live in a world of sensations and vibrations, of deeply felt intuitions. Their conscious awareness, like that of the artist, is extraordinarily open to invasion from other people's thoughts and feelings and from the murky realm of the collective unconscious. They seem to move in a world behind or beneath the world of daylight common sense. From this hidden world they receive, often in the form of almost audible words, gusts of strong feelings, unaccounted for smells, sensations of heat and cold not accessible to others, images of great horror and beauty, and clues about what is really going on with other people. The businessman who has hunches is also accessing the lover. So are we all when we have premonitions and intuitions about people, situations, or our own future. In those moments, the underlying unity of things is revealed to us, even in mundane ways, and we are drawn into the lover energy which connects us with realities of which we are not normally aware. Any artistic or creative endeavor and almost every profession is drawing upon the energies of the lover for creativity. All of us, when we stop doing and just let ourselves be and feel without the pressure to perform, are feeling the lover. Of course, we feel him strongly in our love lives. In our culture, this is the main avenue most of us have for getting in touch with the lover. Many men literally live for the thrill of falling in love, that is, falling into the power of the lover. In this ecstatic consciousness, which comes to even the most hard-boiled of us, we delight in our beloved and cherish her in all her beauty of body and soul. Through our emotional and physical union with her, we are transported into a divine world of ecstasy and pleasure on the one hand, and pain and sorrow on the other. The whole world looks and feels different to us, more alive, more vivid, more meaningful. This is the work of the lover. A man living in either pole of the lover's shadow, like a man living in any of the shadow forms of the masculine energies, is possessed by the very energy that could be a source of life and well-being for him if accessed appropriately. As long as he is possessed by the shadow lover, however, the energy works to his destruction and to the destruction of others around him. The most forceful and urgent question a man identified with the addicted lover asks is, why should I put any limits on my sensual and sexual experience of this vast world, a world that holds unending pleasures for me? There are the so-called addictive personalities, people who can't stop eating or drinking or smoking or using drugs. The addict lives for the pleasure of the moment only and locks us into a web of immobility from which we cannot escape. This is what the theologian Reinhold Niebuhr talked about as the sin of sensuality. Here's where we see the Don Juan syndrome. Monogamy can be seen as the product of a man's own deep rootedness and centeredness. He is bounded not by external rules, but by his own inner structures, his own sense of his masculine well-being and calm, and his own inner joy. But the man moving from one woman to another, compulsively searching for he knows not what, is a man whose inner structures have not yet solidified. Because he himself is fragmented within and not centered, he is pushed and pulled around by the illusory wholeness he thinks is out there in the world of feminine forms and sensual experiences. For the addict, the world presents itself as tantalizing fragments of a lost whole. Caught in the foreground, he can't see the underlying background. Caught in the myriads of forms, as the Hindus say, he can't find the oneness that would bring him calm and stability. Living on the finite side of the prism, he can only experience light in its dazzling but fractured rainbow hues. This is another way of talking about what ancient religions called idolatry. The addicted lover unconsciously invests the finite fragments of his experience with the power of the unity, which he can never experience. The restlessness of the man under the power of the addict is an expression of his search for a way out of the spider's web. The man who is possessed by the web of Maya is twisting and turning, frantically struggling to find a way out of the world. But instead of taking the only way out there is, he struggles and deepens his predicament. This happens because what he thinks is the way out is really the way deeper in. Psychologists talk about the problems that stem from a man's possession by the addict as boundary issues. For the man possessed by the addict, there are no boundaries. As we've said, the lover does not want to be limited, and when we are possessed by him, we cannot stand to be limited. A man possessed by the addicted lover is really a man possessed by the unconscious, his own personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. He is overwhelmed by it as if by the sea. This oceanic chaos, the unconscious, is, as we have seen, imaged in many mythologies as feminine. It is mother. We can see then how the shadow lover as addict is a carryover from childhood into adulthood of the absorption into the mother of the mama's boy. The man under the power of the addict is still within the mother, and he's struggling to get out. He must learn that his lack of masculine structure, his lack of discipline, his resulting affairs, and his authority problems will inevitably get him into trouble. What happens if we feel that we are out of touch with the lover in his fullness? We are then possessed by the impotent lover. We will experience our lives in an unfeeling way. We will describe symptoms that psychologists call flattened affect, lack of enthusiasm, lack of vividness, lack of aliveness. We will feel bored and listless. We may have trouble getting up in the morning and trouble going to sleep at night. We may find ourselves speaking in a monotone. We may find ourselves increasingly alienated from our family, our coworkers, and our friends. We may feel hungry but lack an appetite. Everything may begin to feel like the passage in the biblical book of Ecclesiastes that declares, "All is vanity and a striving after wind," and "There is nothing new under the sun." In short, we will become depressed. People who are habitually possessed by the impotent lover are chronically depressed. They feel a lack of connection with others, and they feel cut off from themselves. We see this in therapy often. The therapist will be able to tell from the expression on the client's face or from his body language that some feeling is trying to express itself. But if we ask the client what he is feeling, he will have absolutely no idea. He may say something like, "I don't know, I just feel there's this kind of fog. Everything is just hazy." This often happens when the client is getting too close to really hot material. What happens then is that a shield goes up between the conscious ego and the feeling. That shield is depression. But we all know that when we're depressed that we just don't have the motivation to do the things we either want to do or have to do. This frequently happens to the elderly. Their physical problems, Isolation and lack of useful work plunge them into depression. The zest for life is gone. The lover seems nowhere to be found. Pretty soon these older men stop fixing meals for themselves. They feel that there's nothing to live for. The Bible says that without a vision, the people perish. It is specifically without the imaging and visioning of the lover that people perish. But it isn't just the lack of a vision that signifies the oppressive power of the impotent lover in a man's life. This man's sex life has gone stale. He is sexually inactive. Such sexual inactivity may stem from any number of factors: boredom and lack of ecstasy with his mate, smoldering anger about his relationship, tension and stress on the job, money worries, or the sense of being emasculated by the feminine or by the other men in his life. In conjunction with the impotent lover, this man has either regressed into a presexual boy, or he is mainlining either the warrior or the magician, or a combination of the three. His sexual and sensual sensitivity has been overwhelmed by other concerns. As his sexual partner becomes more demanding, he withdraws even further into the passive pole of the lover's shadow. At this point, the opposite pole of the archetypal shadow may rescue him by propelling him into the addict's quest for the perfect satisfaction of his sexuality beyond the mundane world of his primary relationship. If we are appropriately accessing the lover, but keeping our ego structure strong, we feel related, connected, alive, enthusiastic, compassionate, empathic, energized, and romantic about our lives, our goals, our work, and our achievements. It is the lover, properly accessed, that gives us a sense of meaning, what we've been calling spirituality. It is the lover who is the source of our longings for a better world for ourselves and others. He it is who is the idealist and the dreamer. He is the one who wants us to have an abundance of good things. I have come to bring you life, that you might have it more abundantly, says the lover. The lover keeps the other masculine energies humane, loving, and related to each other and to the real-life situation of human beings struggling in a difficult world. The king, the warrior, and the magician, as we've suggested, harmonize pretty well with each other. They do so because without the lover, they are all essentially detached from life. They need the lover to energize them, to humanize them, and to give them their ultimate purpose, love. They need the lover to keep them from becoming sadistic. The lover needs them as well. The lover without boundaries, in his chaos of feelings and sensuality, needs the king to define limits for him, to give him structure, to order his chaos so that it can be channeled creatively. Without limits, the lover energy turns negative and destructive. The lover needs the warrior in order to be able to act decisively, in order to detach with the clean cut of the sword from the web of immobilizing sensuality. And the lover needs the magician to help him back off from the ensnaring effect of his emotions, in order to reflect, to get a more objective perspective on things, to disconnect, enough at least to see the big picture and to experience the reality beneath the seeming. Tragically, the unrelenting attacks on our vitality and on our shining begin early in our lives. Many of us may have so repressed the lover in us that it has become very hard for us to feel passionate about anything in our lives. The trouble with most of us is not that we feel too much passion, but that we don't feel our passion much at all. We don't feel our joy. We don't feel able to be alive and to live our lives the way we wanted to live them when we began. We may even think that feelings, and in particular our feelings, are annoying encumbrances and inappropriate for a man. But let us not surrender our lives. Let us find the spontaneity and joy of life inside ourselves. Then not only will we live our lives more abundantly, but we will enable others to live, perhaps for the first time in their lives.
When Lord of the Flies, William Golding's classic novel about English schoolboys marooned on a tropical island, was recently redone in cinematic form, critics of the new movie asked why the story had been remade. Even though this latest film version of Golding's story may not be the best cinema, the answer is that this work, in whatever form, speaks directly and powerfully about the human situation on this planet. It may be true that there never has been a time when the archetypes of the mature masculine were dominant in human life. It seems that we as a species live under the curse of infantilism, and maybe always have. Thus, patriarchy is really puerarchy, that is the rule of boys. And perhaps our human world has always rather resembled Golding's Island. But at least there used to be structures and systems, rituals, for evoking a greater level of masculine maturity than seems to be the rule in our world today. At least there were at one time sacred kings, upon whom the men in the realm could project their inner king and thus activate this masculine energy form indirectly.